on the agenda. Now I would like to, and for the record, I want to say Rick McGay is now on the call. I'd like to introduce our new Congressman, Brad Sherman. Congressman Sherman, we are pleased to have you with us. Proud to be able to host you at the PPCC. We congratulate you on your win, and we frankly congratulate you for having us in your district. We're a feather in any congressman's cap, might I say. So I welcome you. Thank you for making the time to come to the PPCC and address our community. I will spotlight you and give you the floor. Welcome.
Hello, I'm Congressman Brad Sherman. I live in America's best named city, Sherman Oaks. For 26 years, I've represented people in the Los Angeles area in the United States Congress. And it's a pleasure, as a result of redistricting, to add Pacific Palisades. As you know, every 10 years we have a census. In the 0 year. In the 1 year, in this case 2021, they redraw the district lines. In 2022, there was an election, and I'm honored to have been elected to represent the new 32nd Congressional District that includes everyone from Malibu to Chatsworth to Studio City to about half of Westwood and of course to Pacific Palisades. I serve on the Foreign Affairs Committee and the Financial Services Committee. The first of those deals with our foreign policy, and that, of course, brings up quite a number of issues. And the second, Financial Services, deals with the economy, Wall Street, banking, and housing. So I'll open it up to questions in just a bit. And if you ask questions in those areas, I will give you longer and hopefully more erudite answers. With me on the phone is John Alford from our Constituent Service Office, and I want to put in a pitch for his work. Imagine a federal agency makes a mistake. It could happen. It could affect you. If it does happen, could be Social Security, could be a visitor, a business visitor, a family visitor from overseas that isn't getting a visa, could be the IRS. You call John, he works very hard, he solves your problem, and then I, Brad Sherman, take the credit. It's an outstanding system. And I especially want to highlight a couple of things in that area. One is John handles our Academy nominations. So if you know someone interested in attending West Point, Annapolis, the Air Force Academy, first thank them for their willingness to serve our country. And second, have them contact John Alford. Every year we nominate to each of the academies. They're required by law to accept one, but we usually have 2, 3, sometimes even 4 accepted at each academy because we found such outstanding people to nominate. The second thing I'll point out, and we don't want to give John too much additional work on this, so please renew your passport. If it's got less than a year on it, renew it. The State Department, half broken, they're not going, they have great difficulty getting things done in any kind of prompt manner. And also, if you're going to go to a lot of other countries, they won't let you in unless your passport has another 6 months to go on it. So you're planning to go to Japan in April with a passport that's going to expire in June, not so fast. Get your passport renewed. Now, we can deal with emergency situations. We can solve this problem for you, but better yet, don't have the problem at all. Now, I know that most of you would want to spend an hour talking about everything that's going on in Washington, have me respond to questions, et cetera. And that is exactly what we're going to do on February 28th. We'll have our next telephone town hall. You can call in 855-920-0548 at 7 p.m. on the 28th. We did our last telephone town hall last week. Best way to do it, though, is to go to the website, bradsherman.house, that's for House of Representatives.gov. So bradsherman.house.gov, and you can RSVP, you get the instructions as to when and how to call in, and you can put forward a question in advance. So I look forward to participating in the next telephone town hall. A couple of points that you may have heard me make last week at the last telephone town hall. We have divided government. We've really had divided government for the last 2 years, with one very narrow exception. And that is every piece of legislation has got required Democratic and Republican support, or it didn't reach the president's desk. The only real exception was the American Rescue Act. That went through a special provision used only once a year called reconciliation that can deal only with fiscal matters and could pass only with the votes of Sinema and Manchin. So if anybody tells you that Democrats were in control, we're in control one day a year if we get Sinema and Manchin on board and only on fiscal matters. That ended at the beginning of this year. Now every bit of legislation needs to be bipartisan. We will get some bipartisan things done. Frankly, not a whole lot. We'll get a lot done that isn't on the front page of the newspaper. There are important things to get done that don't involve Democrats and Republicans smashing into each other. Without the smashing into each other on a partisan basis, it's kind of, the press doesn't think it's interesting. And maybe it's on page 17 of the LA Times, or maybe they don't print it at all. The big things that do reach the front page of the newspaper, two things have got to happen. We've got to raise the debt limit this summer, or America defaults on its debt. If that happens, God forbid, you're going to see a tripling of the unemployment rate, according to Moody's, $15 trillion of loss in investments on the stock market, possibly a worldwide depression. That probably won't happen. But what has already happened is just the possibility of any of that is depressing investment and interfering in our economy. So we do damage by waiting to get things done before they go off the cliff. Then we prevent them from going off the cliff and says damage avoided. No, not damage avoided. The anticipatory damage is already a damper on the economy. The second thing we have to worry about, very similar, and that is all money that's appropriated expires September 30th. So we shut down the government October 1st unless we reach agreement. A temporary agreement called a continuing resolution, or a year-long agreement called a regular appropriation. So unless we can do those two things on a bipartisan basis, and it has to be, I think, in a way more bipartisan than last year. Last year, it could be bipartisan because you get 1/4 of the Republican senators to join you. Now, nothing is passed unless the majority, the leader of the Republicans, Kevin McCarthy, brings it to the floor. And of course, nothing is passed unless Schumer brings it to the floor in the Senate. So instead of needing overlapping bipartisanship, some overlapping in the Venn diagram, you really need to bring both those circles together. I think I've assured you that I could go on and on. I'll cover one more thing, and that is when we pass the appropriations bills, we hope to have funds for community projects, $1 or $2 million a project to do something specific. And if you have ideas on a place, especially where we could leverage things and just by getting $1 million, $2 million towards something, really get a whole project going, please let John Alford know. You can reach him, whether it be constituent service or whether it be the idea for a community project, at 818-501-9200. And if you don't have that number, we'll probably be giving it to you on a plastic comb that we hand out at every community event, on the theory that most of you have more use for a comb than I do. So look forward to keeping in touch. And I want to thank you for letting me say a few words, and maybe I'll take a couple of questions and then I'll get out of your way so you can finish your meeting.
Thank you so much, Congressman Sherman. That was great and quite encompassing. Any questions for Congressman Brad Sherman? You can raise your regular hands or your digital hands. Okay, I have a question for you, Congressman Sherman. Has nothing to do with the Palisades, but Iran, there's a movement for civil rights and fundamental freedoms going on in Iran. Anything going on in Congress on that front?
Yes, there are several resolutions. I've leading one with Tom McClintock, talk about something that is bipartisan. I don't know if you know McClintock, but
Republican.
He's as far as you could go, but beyond anyway. And then there's another one. and I'm going to mispronounce the woman's name, which is yeah, that is named after her. Well, both resolutions deal with that. And I think it's important that we show the world, as I think the comments of President Biden have shown, that we are on the side of the Iranian people. That being said, it's very hard to say that democracy and freedom in Iran is going to come from Washington. It's going to come from Shiraz and Tehran and Isfahan. We'll have to see. What is so unfortunate, but tends to be true in these matters, is that if a terrible government can keep itself in power as long as it has 10 or 20,000 thugs who are willing to actually shoot into the crowd. And what has happened, whether you look at the Russian Revolution in February of 1917, whether you look at what happened in Tunisia, etc., when that last core group abandons the dictators, that's when they can be overcome. And so far, I don't know whether the Quds Force, etc., will abandon this regime. It's clear where the people stand, but the government does not need 50% support in order to stay in power. It has more than 50% of the guns. So we'll see. I mean, this is a people with an incredible history. The first human rights document ever published in recorded history, at least, is the Cyrus Cylinder, which allowed exiles to go back and to practice their own religion. It's written about it that the Cyrus Cylinder refers to the people of Babylon, but similar action was taken and recorded with regard to the Jewish people who returned and built the Second Temple. So you've got a people with a great history and a terrible government. And I look forward to doing all we can, but admiring the freedom of and the bravery of the Iranian people certainly is an important part of that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. All right. Any other questions? I see Steve Crone. Steve Crone is a member of the board and the chair of the Pacific Palisades Democratic Club, as you may know.
Yes, that face may look familiar. Anyway, good evening, Congressman. So I don't know that you can answer my question, but I will throw it out there. Do you have any ideas on what's going to happen with the new Israeli government and American policy towards Israel in light of from my perspective, some of the tactics they have extolled, such as eliminating rights for the LGBT community, taking over areas of the West Bank and proposing to annex them. Do you have any idea what the Biden administration will do with that?
It's tough. What do you know? I loved my country even when Donald Trump was president. And we have an alliance between the American and Israeli people, even when one of their governments, a few years ago ours, now theirs, is a government that has made some mistakes. One bright spot on the LGBTQ side is that the new speaker of the Knesset is LGBTQ. On the other hand, you have elements in the government that are talking quite hostily. And what you see is a division in Israel among those who are loyal to Bibi Netanyahu or who he is willing to buy off, and everybody else who's worried because, among other things, he's been indicted and could very well be convicted of a host of corruption charges. And so you've got a leader who's LGBTQ and president of the Knesset supporting Bibi Netanyahu, and then you have extreme homophobes also supporting, and the only thing that links them together is Netanyahu. It is a bit of a shame if Arab citizens of Israel would turn out to vote in the same numbers as other Israelis. We would have had a different result. And you had an unfortunate division between the merits and labor parties so that all the vote, if they had joined together, then all the votes cast for them would end up with seats in the Knesset. Instead, they couldn't join together. And also all the votes cast for merits don't count. Because if you vote for a party that gets less than 3.25% of the vote, your vote doesn't count. Those are wasted votes. In contrast, Netanyahu took two extreme parties and got them to run together, and their votes all counted. So we're going to have big and small problems, particularly with regard to possible annexation. So far, the Israeli government is only talking about those things. And look, there's considerable problems with the Palestinian side as well. And there was a lot more support for the peace process in Israel 20 years ago, 10 years ago than today. But when you have a Palestinian Authority that is teaching all of its children at the schools that the greatest thing they could do is be martyrs and kill themselves as long as they're killing Israelis, when you have one side doing that, it's somewhat understandable that the other side becomes less reasonable, less forthcoming, and peace gets further away. So I haven't given up hope, but I've given up hope for the next couple of years.
Thanks.
Thank you, Congressman Sherman. We have two more questions for you. And as you can tell, Steve can also use that comb that you give away at your.
Oh, Steve gets a lifetime.
Oh, no. I just got a really short haircut for tonight.
Marilyn Wexler and then Murray Levy.
I thank you, Congressman, for taking my question. Since you're locally involved here, I've been really distressed over the loss of our Southern California cougars, and I'm pretty involved in the Save the Cougar, programs. And I would hope that you would appoint a point person or something in your office there who could really follow up on this, because we're building the first in Southern California bridge over the 101 freeway to let wildlife get across. And we just lost a cougar. Yeah, we just lost a cougar last week. Got hit again. It's like, it just breaks your heart. So I appreciate your attention to it.
Well, although my district has been north of Mulholland for a while, I was originally elected in a district that included virtually all of the Santa Monica Mountains. I was able to get the funds necessary to finish the Backbone Trail and to create wildlife corridors so that our furry friends would no longer have to date their cousins. And it was such a shame to see this cougar leave us, but I will continue to do everything I can to support the environment and the Santa Monica Mountains, which is such a treasure. It's the only national park that's right there next to a metropolitan area. So
thanks.
Look forward to doing what I can. Let's take one more question.
Murray Levy, area one.
Thank you. I'm just curious. I watched the State of the Union message Tuesday, and the thing that shocked me most was the lack of civility, and it was really kind of disgusting. And I wonder, you've been in Congress for a long time. Do you see any hope for a return to I'd call it adult behavior in the Congress?
There must be a word for the opposite of maturing, I remember when one member shouted liar at a president, and that was big news. This was by far the most raucous State of the Union. I guess the only plus part of it is that, at least in right-wing media, Biden is portrayed as a doddering and barely able to read a teleprompter. Well, here you are at a time when anybody would be very nervous. You have your speech, and then all of a sudden you're thrown off, and the response was deft, showed a little humor, And I think he responded to the heckling as well as one of the best at one of the comedy clubs. So he dealt with it well. He showed he's up to it, but you shouldn't have to be. What we should have is a respectful, the other sides have a rebuttal speech that they get to give. Nobody heckled Huckabee Sanders, Governor Huckabee Sanders, when she gave her response. I did comment on it afterward, because in her response, she said that her big thing was that we have a choice between what do we say, normal and crazy, and I really do think I agree with her. That is the choice that we're going to face over the next couple of years. Normal and crazy, Biden and Trump. So I would say that as individuals, we get along as well as other people you might work with. There were a few who wanted to go viral and scream and lack decorum, and that was clearly not the way to behave. And look, I've had some problems with lines I've heard from, for example, President Trump, but you didn't see me going viral screaming what I might have been thinking. So I want to thank everybody. I look forward to talking to you on
Congressman Sherman, before you go, first, I want to give a shout out to Talene Karuglian, who is.
I didn't know that she was on as well, because I saw John. Yes.
John too. Well, we'd love to meet him as well. John Alford.
Talene, thanks for being on as well, and all those things I said about getting your constituent service work done. You can certainly call Talene as well.
So thank you, Talene. She told us she'd be with us till roughly 6:40. So I'm going to let our security advisor, public safety advisor, have the last question. Krishna, last question.
Okay, because they do have me scheduled to be somewhere else in about a minute.
I know, she'll be quick, I promise.
Congressman Sherman, thank you so much for being here. You do not need to answer this question, but you need to take it away with you.
Mm-hmm.
I would be very interested in knowing how government staffing levels are looking. I'm concerned about staffing at all levels of government, including immigration departments. Do you have any insight into that, either now or something you can get back to us?
Well, that will be the fight that we will have in the late summer and early fall. Republicans want to set expenditure levels at 2022 levels, but the country will be 1 to 2% larger, and the dollar will be 4 to 5 to 6% smaller.
My question is, are you currently understaffed in government? Why is there such a delay in immigration?
I have such outstanding staff in my own office that we're keeping up with things. Certainly there are areas of the government that are understaffed.
How many?
We would have to take a list of every
That's
government.
fine. Could you please report back to us? We're very, very concerned that law enforcement is understaffed across the country,
Right.
and it is impacting quality of life. And I would be interested in knowing what other critical government departments, such as healthcare and immigration, are also running at below optimal levels, and what are your plans to address that?
Certainly the whole adjudication process involved with immigration goes ridiculously slowly.
Why?
Our visa offices abroad are ridiculous.
Why?
Wait, so hold on a second.
Okay.
Congressman Sherman, we will stay in touch with your staff, and we will.
We have complicated laws, and we don't provide the funds necessary to carry them out. But since you're talking about every government agency, I can't possibly give you as detailed an answer as I'd like. Folks, thank you very much.
Please keep it in mind. Please keep it in mind.
I will definitely keep it in mind. I keep it in mind every day. And we'll be fighting over exactly the appropriations levels of every government agencies all through the summer and fall. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for attending. It was lovely meeting you. Thank you. And we'll stay in touch with your staff, and my thanks to them again for arranging this.
Thank you very much. Bye.